COVID-19 has been one of the most transformative parts of modern human history. To combat this dangerous virus, scientists across the globe have been actively working to boost our medical regimens. This includes the now worldwide COVID vaccine. Despite its relative newness to the public, the mRNA vaccine has been a well-tested and safe opportunity to protect a person from COVID. Here, we will offer you a look into some of the misconceptions of the new COVID vaccine and their lack of scientific standing, as well as some history and true scientific information about the mRNA vaccine.
One of the most common misconceptions that you have probably heard about is that the government is using COVID vaccines to chip us all. However, the CDC has proven this to be false. The purpose of the COVID vaccine is to stimulate the immune system to produce antibodies against COVID-19 without getting COVID first. Also, chips are not small enough to be injected into the vaccine. Another common misconception is that vaccines are giving rise to new variants. However, the CDC has also proven this to be false. Variants are actually caused by the virus that is causing COVID-19. The virus is constantly changing through the process of mutation. As the virus spreads more, this gives the virus more opportunities to keep changing through mutation and give rise to new variants. Therefore, it is very important for people to get vaccinated so that the new variants don't continue to emerge. We will now move on to talk about the real purpose of the vaccine.
Here's how the COVID-19 mRNA vaccine works. SARS-CoV-2, the virus that causes the COVID-19 disease, uses a spike protein that sits on its outer surface to get into cells via their receptors and infect the host. What the mRNA vaccine has is the shortened instructions that code for this spike protein of SARS-CoV-2. The vaccine enters our cells by coating the spike mRNA it contains with a protective coat, delivering it into our cells. Once it gets into our cells, our body converts the spike mRNA into an actual spike protein. This process makes antibodies against the virus spike proteins because our immune system produces a response from the mRNA instructions. In short, the vaccine causes our cells to make spike proteins, which then cause our bodies to build up an immune response to the proteins. Injecting ourselves with a part of what we're trying to fight against sounds pretty crazy at first, but this is how we can stay protected against COVID-19.
Despite the conspiracy theorists disbelieving the authenticity of the seemingly newfangled vaccine, mRNA vaccines have had a strong influence over medical practices for many decades. The Salk Institute for Biological Studies in La Jolla, California, one of the first organizations to study RNA, saw a possibility of using RNA proteins in medicine in the early 1980s. While the discovery of the RNA proteins was in the 1960s, the development and use of this protein was not used in lab studies until 1992. Testing of RNA proteins and their ability to fight against bacteria and viruses led researchers to test the protein in mice. Once they were sure of the protein's ability to stave off infections, the researchers were able to create the first RNA vaccine, used to combat the influenza in mice in 1993. Testing continued with different viruses and subjects. Uses like cancer vaccines for mice and humans have been some of the most profound abilities tied to an mRNA vaccine. This is now true in the COVID mRNA vaccine, as scientists actively work to protect the people of the world using the extensive knowledge and history of the mRNA vaccine. Next, we will discuss the different vaccines currently available today.
Let's talk about some similarities and differences between vaccines to further understand what's going on in the COVID-19 vaccine. Vaccines like Pfizer and Moderna use mRNA technology. Though there is past research for this technology, COVID vaccines are one of the only vaccines that mainly use it, allowing greater leaps into further developing medicine. The Pfizer and Moderna vaccines require 2 doses. The first one primes the immune system by introducing the mRNA, and the second helps to boost its efficacy. There are other vaccines that do require multiple doses, like the MMR and shingles vaccine, for a similar reason. The first dose may not provide enough immunity, so the additional doses build it further. Symptoms of the flu and COVID are similar, so are the vaccines similar too? Well, that's not necessarily the case here. While COVID-19 vaccines use mRNA technology, the flu vaccines do not. Since there are so many strains of the flu vaccines are taken annually in an effort to fight against the different strains that researchers determine are most likely to spread in the season. The COVID-19 vaccine does not focus on the different strains as extensively as the flu vaccine does.